Hello, how ya doing? This is Jeffrey Lee Volshinsky, your choral master of the curiously inconsequential, and I'm hitting the happy falsetto as I welcome you back to another Thanksgiving episode of Meaningless Minutia, a show that puts the firecracker in the turkey of knowledge just before you cook it. And with that unnecessarily messy imagery put out there, let's get to this week's question. Did you know the author of Mary Had a Little Lamb is also responsible for Thanksgiving holiday? Now wait a minute, you're probably thinking the Pilgrims are responsible for the Thanksgiving holiday. Of course, that could be a bad assumption on my part. You might not have been thinking about that at all. But just for the sake of not jumping down any existential rabbit hole, let's just say you were. But if you were, you'd be wrong. While the fabled feast between the Pilgrims and Indians to give thanks for a bountiful harvest was the inspiration to what now is known as Thanksgiving, the day wasn't actually conceived as a yearly tradition. Matter of fact, there had been similar gatherings in other American colonies around the same time. The term Thanksgiving was actually something people used back then to publicly acknowledge the divine gratitude. So many colonies had their own days of Thanksgiving that happened at sporadic times around the year. The first official day of Thanksgiving as a holiday didn't happen until 1789 when George Washington declared November 26th a national holiday. This didn't have any connection with the Pilgrims, though, but was more conceived as a day of prayer and only happened that one year. It wasn't until a poet and editor of a popular magazine came into the picture that Thanksgiving holiday as we know it today started to take shape. Sarah Hale, who was famous for penning the popular children's rhyme Mary Had a Little Lamb, and was a magazine editor which published works of such writers as Washington Irving Jr. and Nathaniel Hawthorne, became fascinated with the story of the Feast of the Pilgrims. It was this fascination that gave her the idea that Thanksgiving should be a national holiday. Hale began to use her magazine to get support behind this idea, which included introducing recipes for turkey, stuffing, and pumpkin pie. Of course, the annual tradition she was putting forth had little to do with the actual Feast of the Pilgrims, but was more of an idealized version of what she thought Thanksgiving was. Her yearly articles about this possible holiday that was centered around the fantastical first feast between the Pilgrims and Indians had become really popular with her readers. She lobbied from 1846 to 1863 until finally Abraham Lincoln, looking to help heal some of the ill will caused by the Civil War, declared the fourth Thursday of November a national holiday for Thanksgiving to be celebrated every year. And the fourth Thursday is where it would stay, except for 2 years in 1930 when Franklin D. Roosevelt changed it to the third Thursday in November in hopes that it would help the economy by making Christmas shopping season just a little bit longer. This didn't go over well with people, and realizing this mistake decided to change it back to the fourth Thursday, and that's where it stayed, cementing Miss Hale's 17-year quest to make Thanksgiving holiday the celebration we know today, even though the particulars of that day is based on a fib or two. But as they say, when the legend is more popular than the truth, go with the legend. Okay, I can feel the lullaby type effect of this show about to take hold, so I best just stop there. But before I let you head out to skip to my loo, let me leave you with this forgettable factoid of fascination. The first Thanksgiving dinner mostly consisted of seafood, which leads me to assume allergies to shellfish wasn't really a thing back then. And with that, I'm Jeffrey Lee Volshinsky saying, Happy Thanksgiving, amigos.